bombshell. Disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein's 2020 rape conviction is being overturned.
Yes, I know that is of course, salacious headline, and it's true. But, here at Bryant and Bodden, we don't react to these headlines. Michael Bryant here, Linda Kenny Bodden there. We like to root around, kind of figure out what's really going on here. And when it comes to this Weinstein case, who better to help us do the rooting and the ferreting and the wandering around than the man who represented Harvey Weinstein? Arthur Aidala is here. Welcome, sir. Good to have you along. And I bet it's been kind of a crazy few hours since this decision came down from the New York Appellate Court. Quick background here, of course. Harvey Weinstein convicted of rape 2020, sentenced to 23 years, doing about 4 of those before this decision came down. And the guts of it saying, hey, you can't have all these propensity witnesses to pile on the defendant when it has nothing to do with the acts in front of this particular jury. I probably mushed in a few things there, Arthur, but give me your original take when you learned the decision and how it was reacted to by your client.
Well, thank you for having me. And just to make it clear, I had no choice but to come on, because if I don't come on, Linda's husband will be mad at me, and I never would want to make that happen. So, and for full disclosure, we're not going to get involved with ages, but my father, and we can talk about how old he is, he'll be 86 in a month, worked with Dr. Bodden back in the day in the Manhattan DA's office stuff. And so I feel like I'm amongst family here.
Yeah, my husband loves your father, Arthur, as you know, as a result, you.
And I haven't felt like I've been amongst family during this little media trip on this with this case. And the reason why it's a little sad, and you guys can understand, is, and it's the same reason why this decision is so important. They're looking at the individual and they're saying, oh, well, we don't like Harvey Weinstein, okay? For whatever reason. Let's just say you don't like his physical appearance or whatever it is. He was mean to a waiter, and your kid happened to be the waiter. And basically what took place here was the judge succumbed to the pressure, basically, of the Me Too movement to convict him at all costs. And as much as the judge deserves blame, and he got the blame yesterday, so does the prosecutor. Because I will tell you, I hold the prosecutor in this case, Jonah Luzzi, in high regard. And she asked for the world. I think what we wrote in the brief was like, she asked for the universe and the judge just gave her the moon and the stars. But the moon and the stars, even she should have known, was unprecedented amount of what you described, Michael, earlier, is like this propensity evidence. It's basically, the trial was not, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, listen to the 3 women who he's charged with sexually assaulting. It's also listen to 4 other women. Originally, they asked for 3, and then in the middle of the trial, they slipped in a 4th, who he's not charged with. And they're just going to tell you what a bad guy he is. They're not coming in to prove modus operandi, because all the scenarios between all 7 women were very different. So it's a victory for our justice system that someone as unpopular as Harvey Weinstein became is still entitled to the protections of our system.
Yeah. Arthur, in full disclosure, I have to tell our viewers that, as you know, I was hired by one of the defense teams to give an opinion as a consultant on one specific issue, which I did. And that's how I think I crossed paths with you in the hallway one day.
5 years ago, right about now.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't look a day older, and I'm not going there with me. But anyhow.
Check, Linda, get the glasses checked.
I'm really interested in the interplay between, first of all, we all knew that this was coming down, all right? This is no big deal. Matter of fact, it has implications for the Trump decision, but that's another issue, the Trump trial. But I'm interested in the interplay between this and the California case. Could you talk to us a little bit about that? Whether
well, I will tell you one of the biggest issues as a trial attorney. Imagine having to stand up there now in California, a year after Harvey's convicted in Manhattan and sentenced. In your jury selection, you have to tell the jurors, oh, by the way, he's been convicted and he's actually in jail. But can you be fair and impartial? We're all human beings. We're not computers where you can just hit delete and that disappears from your brain. So I hope on that issue itself that a judge says, well, or judges there in California say, this guy should not be on trial with a jury that thinks he's been convicted when now he has not been convicted. The conviction has now been erased. There's also some of the same problems in that case that there are here. And Mike and Linda, let me just tell you one other thing to show you how unreliable this propensity type of evidence is. One of the witnesses in the Manhattan case, Lauren Young, who came on as a propensity witness, actually was the complainant in California, and they went to trial on her. And guess what the result was? Not guilty. So the one propensity witness that was actually put to the full test of the judicial system, he was acquitted of. It was a ridiculous story she told. But, in Manhattan, when you hear 7 women saying something happened, they're not the same who's on a roof and who's dealing with plants and who's in a shower, who's in a hotel room. They're all different stories, but eventually it adds up where jurors are like, well, he must have done something, so we might as well convict him of something.
And if the jury's looking for a reason to find Harvey Weinstein guilty, the propensity evidence gives them all that they really need. So let's flash forward here, because I've heard so many people concerned, that the witnesses are going to have to relive these horrible events in their lives. And I'm thinking, if the reason this came back was a problem with propensity witnesses, we're going to see propensity witnesses if there is a retrial, because then you're going to come right back full circle with a second appeal. Do you think, A, that the DA has the stones to retry this without propensity witnesses, and if so, what's the outcome?
I think that Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, who's the same DA in the Trump case, I think he's going to succumb to the pressure of, you can't just let Harvey Weinstein walk. You can't just let him go. I mean, who knows? He could win the California appeal, and then he's a free man at 73 years old. So I think if he can retry it, he will retry it. There was a statement released yesterday by the lawyer of the main witness here that said, quote unquote, she would consider coming back in and testifying. But Linda, how about this one? On the stand, this witness, Miriam Haley, she's the one who he got sentenced to 20 years for oral sodomy. She testifies, this is not about money. This has nothing to do with money. There's no lawsuit. Well, who's that woman in the front row, Miss Haley? Oh, that's Gloria Allred. Oh, and isn't she the lawyer who gets everyone money? Oh, yeah, no, not me. She's just guiding me through the system. Oh, okay. What do you think happened after the Harvey Weinstein conviction and sentencing? A lawsuit against the insurance company, and I don't know, it was an undisclosed amount. So she got some amount of money. We don't know how much. If they retry this case, that is the very beginning. I'm putting my cards on the table. If I'm the trial attorney, that is the very first question is, do you remember being asked this question and giving this answer 5 years ago almost? Did you get money? Is this financial? No, I'm here to save the world. Well, what happened 9 months later? Did you then collect a lawsuit and tell the ladies and gentlemen jury how much money you collected? Oh, I can't tell them how much because there's a confidentiality agreement. I'll be breaching the money. Is it hundreds of thousands? Is it millions? Is it tens of millions? No, don't tell us. We don't want to know. I would never ask you to violate the agreement. And now those jurors realize she has a tremendous financial motivation to say whatever she needs to say in that courtroom.
Speaking about jurors, Arthur, this is always interesting to me. I tried with our team the Hernandez case, Aaron Hernandez back in Massachusetts, and he already had been convicted of murder, and we got acquittals on not guilty on 2 murders with this trial that happened after everyone knew and convicted of murder, and the jurors all knew it. Harvey had a juror on that case. Did the judges pay any attention to it in terms of, and you know the one I'm talking about, who had
she wrote a book. Yeah, no, they really didn't. They didn't address it at all. It's very similar in the Bill Cosby case. There was all this propensity evidence. If you watch the oral arguments, which I did because Jennifer Bongine did a brilliant job, probably a dozen times I watched the arguments because I was learning from them. And then that's what they focused on, 80% of the argument. They wind up reversing on the 20%, which was the non-prosecution agreement that they had given Bill Cosby if he came in and spoke to them, which he did, and then they reneged on the non-prosecution agreement. So here, we did make a stink about the juror. I wish they would have addressed it because it would have told trial judges, hey, like in the Trump case, there's juror, it's the same number, juror number 11. She's like, I don't know. I know Trump. I not personally, but I don't like the way he handles himself. I think he's very selfish, et cetera, et cetera. In any other case, that juror would not be seated in the jury box. There were 40 some odd other potential jurors right there in the courtroom. Dismiss her for cause and put someone else in. But the Trump team had run out of their peremptory challenges, and the judge wouldn't give it to them for cause. That's a mistake.
Yeah, it's really it's fascinating to me. But listening to you, I know Michael probably feels the same way. I mean, you just gave a brilliant cross-examination. Whether you like Harvey Weinstein, don't like Harvey Weinstein, the issue is not that. The issue is justice here in terms of the law. And then if these facts are true, a fair jury is going to find whatever happened.
I'm with you. And that's why, Michael, this was really a monumental ruling, obviously for New York, but for the whole country, because they all watch what we do. This is the headline of every newspaper. I'll make you laugh. My family is Sicilian. My mom's family comes from a tiny little town south of Palermo called Bolognetta. There's 3,000 people. They all called me yesterday on FaceTime. They were having dinner because it was 6 o'clock there. It was noon here. And they're like, Arturo, you're all over the news. You're all over the news in this tiny little town in Palermo, Sicily. So it just shows the world that the American justice system does work.
It's so difficult to get people to understand, look, this is the law. This is the way it works. And if it isn't working for a guy you hate, it ain't going to work for you either. So how do you make that argument? How do you because a lot of people, you're the bad guy.
Listen, you do your best. The Daily News wrote a ridiculous editorial today attacking the chief judge of the Court of Appeals for writing this decision instead of applauding him. Here's what's funny. The most liberal judges on the bench, and I hate to use those terms, but that's the truth. The judges who most look at the law and the life most liberally, who are probably big proponents of Me Too, they're the ones who ruled that this trial was unfair. I'll tell you one other thing, Michael. Women reversed this case, and let me tell you how. After you're in, you don't get to the Court of Appeals automatically. You have to ask to go into the Court of Appeals. So at my law firm, Diana Fabi Sampson, obviously a woman, she writes the very short letter, relatively short letter to the court asking for leave to go up there. It is received by the Chief Judge, Janet DiFiore, a champion of women's rights. She says, okay, I'm going to let you up. She's only done that in less than 2% of cases for criminal defendants. But she saw the egregious nature of the rulings at the lower court. And then so after you have a female chief judge letting us in, she then retires. And who writes the decision? Judge Jenny Rivera, another champion of women's rights. Who's in the majority of the 4 people? It's 3 women and 1 man. Who wrote the brief, the overall brief? Diana Fabi Sampson. It's all women. I was the only male in the mix besides the chief judge, Judge Rowan Wilson. So, when people say, oh, how could that happen? Say, look, talk to the women. Talk to the women who are the intelligent women with integrity who decided that everyone in the United States of America, no matter how unpopular you are entitled to the protections of the laws and the Constitution, of the state Constitution and the federal Constitution.
Arthur Aidala, if I get into trouble, I know I am calling you. And I just have a final question from that female point of view. There's always this thing that a woman has to try. A woman has to try a case where there are women complainants. I don't buy it. I tell people that just put that away. Are you going to be the new trial attorney who actually handles the case in court in front of a jury and picks the jury when this case comes back for a retrial, if it does?
If I'm going to be totally candid, under normal circumstances, I'd be like, of course, right? I just won this big thing with Mr. Weinstein. He'll weigh out his options, as you know, Linda, and he'll figure out what pieces of the puzzle are best. I do think he and I have a strong relationship. I think I've earned his trust. But that'll be his decision, and whatever it is, I'll live with it. But yes, if we go forward, it will be that I would be the primary attorney. And I appreciate you saying that about women. I mean, I do think having a female perspective at the table, forget about the optics of it, I think helps a lot about when to pull back a little bit and when to be aggressive. It's funny because one of the criticisms from my own team, including Mr. Weinstein, was that one of the women who I cross-examined, Dawn Dunning, is like, I was too nice to her. But that's just my style. I am a big believer in you catch more bees with honey than vinegar. So I'm not big with like going up there and yelling at them and screaming at them and pointing their finger. I'm more about like luring the answers and getting the answers I want in a nice way, unarming way. But you never know. As you guys know, this is not a science, it's an art, and there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat.
Well, I look forward to it. If it comes back, I look forward to what will be a totally different type of trial. There is no doubt about it. Arthur, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Arthur, so very much.
Regards to your very handsome husband.